something completely different.
All right. So I was debating if I wanted to talk about this. I wasn't quite sure. Because sometimes in life you should let things go. Sometimes in life you just go, bygones be bygones. Sometimes in life you go, you know what, Ryan Hoppe, just move on. But that wouldn't be my show if I did that. If I just moved on, there would be a content. So as you all know, I worked at iHeartMedia, I Hate Radio, for about 9 months. And it's not a bad company if you're like the cool kid. It's kind of like working at a high school. Like if you were in the cool kid group, or you were throwing the wild parties, or you were prom king, or a high school jock, or in theater, you're going to fit in there. But unless you're some like Gen X radio host who's been there forever and is kind of doing like edgy radio, they're not really building anything good. It's just a bunch of fake prank calls. Because yes, when you hear somebody talk about getting broken up at 7 a.m., those are all actors that are waiting to go on multiple radio shows. And I have caused a lot of ruckus by admitting that, but it's the truth. So last night, I was on Reddit, and usually I'll just kind of refresh Reddit for an hour because I'm in like the Tampa Reddit group, St. Pete Reddit group. I'm in some radio Reddit groups, some cartoon Reddit groups, and a lot of times the stuff that goes on in Tampa, I really can't relate to because I live in St. Pete and I don't really know a lot about Tampa. But I saw this headline, and it drew my attention. It says, The Joe Show 519. This is from Blacklist Bambi. I'm nervous writing about this because I honestly don't know where our city stands right now on issues like this. Looking for some feedback on how to anonymously bring a complaint or I guess get a pulse to see if others were uncomfortable as well. This morning at around 7:15 to 7:40 a.m., I tuned into the radio. The Joe Show on 93.3 FLZ was on, and I'm not an avid listener, but it kept me going just as background noise. A perfect way to describe that show. The question for callers was, how would you escape from prison? A caller phoned in, which could have been fake, said something to the effect of being uncertain how they would escape because they have 3 children. Joe asked out of curiosity, Joe Carballo, which of her 3 children she thinks would be best at escaping, and she said the middle child. Ashley asked, which, by the way, I saw Ashley at a nightclub event 2 months ago. Unfriendly. Ashley asked, why would you think it's your middle child? And the mom on the phone said, because he is black. I was gutted as a listener. The other 2 are white, she said. Joe or someone was laughing, probably producer Jed. Probably a little sore from his MMA classes he loves to brag about. Ashley tried asking, what does that mean? The mom proceeded to say that he is sneaky and that her wife agrees. So maybe it was a game on? I don't know the race of the mothers, but I can't believe in 2025 that answer was not called out by Joe or his other host. Well, Joe Carballo, let's be real here. I know this is going to cause a ruckus, and I know they're going to go, oh, well, we got the radio show, you got the podcast, even though podcasting's the future. But everything I've ever done has been earned. Everything I've ever done has been me getting up early, me going to a radio trade school, me driving or flying to radio conventions, me, grinding, me interviewing 350 people. Everything in that show is nepotism. The person goes on to say, I'm sorry if this seems like an intense reaction, but it felt racist and I don't know how freely it was said without any condemnation by the other hosts. I tried calling the station to voice my concerns with no response. Well, listen, Blacklist Bambi, the thing goes like this. They are very protected. Their father, who I used to be friends with, but ever since me and Joe became enemies, will not talk to me anymore. And I get it. You pick your son first. It's fine. I care. It's not like I was getting any money in my bank account from being friends with his father, who's got a prominent morning show called Mojo in the Morning in Detroit. A very good show. Once again, does those fake segments where it's like, oh my God, you got cheated on last night. You want to call in at 10 a.m. to talk about it? Here's the thing. You can complain to iHeartMedia all you want. You can say, oh, that was racist. Sounds a little racist. But that is a city that gave Bubba the Love Sponge a career. So what do you expect? Now, you might be saying, why are you talking about the Joe Show? They're the big bad radio show, and you're doing a podcast. Even though podcasting is now overshadowing radio, especially video podcasts, which I don't think a video podcast is a podcast. I think audio podcasts are podcasts, but that's a side note. But there were a few times during my time at iHeartRadio that I tried my hardest to get along with Joseph Carballo, and he's just not a nice guy to me. First example, there was one time I was working on the Pat and Aaron show, and they said, we want to have producer Judd on to talk about, him being at some bar with Aaron that weekend. So I went into Joe's studios at the 93.3 FLZ studios, which was crazy being in a room because like MJ was in there, all the people from iHeart were back in the day. This is at their old building. Now, I have resting bitch face. I like to call it resting monster face, where I don't really show any emotion. And especially at 6:10 a.m., whenever I'm doing morning radio, everyone thinks I'm grumpy, but I'm just tired. So I walked into the room, and I said to Jed, at some point, Pat and Aaron want to talk to you. I don't know. So then I go back to the studio of 6:20, and I answer calls, and I get a phone call from a loudmouth trying to be Howard Stern. I go, what? Or I go, now 102.5 The Bone. I go, 95.3 WDAE, who is this? And I hear, who do you think you are? And first of all, this phone call was live on air, and that's illegal to have people on air without their consent, which is why those prank calls are fake. And I go, who is this? And they go, who do you think you are? And I go, who is this? And they go, The Joe Show on 93.3 FLZ. How dare you bust into my studios? And how dare you complain? And how dare you do your thing? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, what am I, your monkey? And I'm like, no, Joe, you're not my monkey. Like the coffee barely hit. I was freaking tired. And he goes, what are you? What am I, your monkey? And I go, no, Joe, you're not my monkey or whatever. It's so stupid. I'm having a hard time telling it. And he goes, well, if I'm your monkey, why don't I just jump up in the air? Hey, everybody, if I'm Ryan Hoppy's monkey, how hard do I have to jump? How high do I have to jump? And I said about 6'9", and I hung up. And that was where that rivalry began. But I thought, you know what? It's radio host being radio host. Whatever. But this is where it gets good, kind of. It was the announcement that Tom Brady made on either St. Pete Beach or whatever beach where he said he was retiring. And we played the tweet on air, and a Tampa Bay Buccaneers reporter, I want to keep him nameless, he calls in to break it down. Before we get to that, we've been recording for 11 minutes and 7 seconds, 8 seconds, 9 seconds, 10 seconds, 11 seconds, 11 minutes and 11 seconds. Make a wish, bitch! So, this reporter's on air talking about how Brady was going to retire, and the Joe Show begins to simulcast our show without our consent and told everybody to call in and say that he was going to join the 49ers. And I put two people on hold that said that he's joining the 49ers. Because I didn't know what to do. You got to take all calls. And Pat and Aaron were freaking out, and they had these like callers on air that were like teenage girls, like, I heard Tom Brady's going to the 49ers. And then Pat and Aaron freaked out. It was really ugly. And Joe didn't even get a slap on the wrist. So you can maybe see why I can't stand this guy. You can maybe see why he rubs me the wrong way. Now, do I think going on Reddit and complaining about a radio show is going to do anything, especially when their dad has power? No! But if it's a radio show that does fake segments, you should expect respect fake personalities. Last story. Joe was like always in the hallway. He's like, yeah, this is my building, because of your dad, but this is my building, but I think I'll share some of the attention with you sometime. How about Friday at 9:50 a.m.? You come into the studio and I'll interview you and welcome you to iHeartRadio. And I'm like, cool. It's about 3 months in or whatever. So I go in and I saw Joe at Janice Live about 4 years ago, when I was going to Jack Harlow. And I've known Joe from when he was doing afternoons in Detroit because of his dad. And he was never nice to me at the bar. Everybody that was my age was going around like, who is this guy? Why is he carrying himself like such a cocky asshole? Well, I was trying to give Joe a chance, so I went on there. And he just begins to interrogate me about how my ex was supposedly rude to him at a Jack Harlow concert when she was actually nice to him. And he was the one that was rude. Now, I just had to get this off my chest. Because when you work somewhere and you grind your ass off and you do nothing wrong, I mean, yeah, it was a little bit of immaturity on my part in my time at iHeart. But it was essentially, I was Justin Baldoni and the Joe Show was Blake Lively. And it was a huge smear campaign because everybody kisses his ass because he has power. And he even walks around like he's Howard Stern. He wears the baggy clothes like Howard Stern in the 90s. And it's just freaking nauseating. I saw there was a comment here. I don't know. It's RYANHOPPE radio. And it says, the Joe Show is a Nepo baby with fake dating segments. I wonder who wrote that.
Happy Hour. Happy Hour.
It's time for Hoppe in the morning.
RyanHoppyRadio.com.
Happy Hour will be right back.
You probably had Taco Bell before.
Whenever we're going outside, all I smell is poop.
In the nuts, and we'll call it a day.